Welcome, everyone. We're very happy to have you join us for a live Q&A with Senior Instructor Tony Kosinec. To ask Tony questions, please just type your questions in the chat, whether you're viewing on YouTube or Facebook. And if you can keep the chat focused on the questions, that really helps our tech team to gather those questions so that we can provide those to Tony. So again, welcome. Great to have you with us, Tony. Always great to be together with you.
And it is great to be together with you and with all the people who are watching and with all the friends who are working behind the scenes to make this happen. Linda, we got two Lindas. We have Yelena, Joseph, Vesna, Tamar helps us organize it, Rachel helps us organize it, and Dima makes sure that we got the right stream keys and you can see us. Hello. So this is called Kabbalah Explained Simply, and it's a Q&A. Kabbalah Explained Simply. I would say that the simplest explanation of what Kabbalah is in total is about perception of reality and how completely inclusive all the things that we feel and need are in that umbrella, under that umbrella. Whether we're happy, whether we're hungry, whether we feel lonely, whether we see a good world or a bad world, feel that we're in pain or pleasure, this all has to do with perception of reality. So how do you look at this? You know, science looks at it like, well, there are other dimensions. Yeah, we're here, but around us there are these other dimensions, and there are theories about where are these dimensions. And to me, I find them very humorous. One of them is that they're curled up inside each other. They're like spiraled inside of each other, as though other dimensions were a place, or like the dimension, so to speak, or the perception of reality that we find ourselves in right now. But if it is other dimensional, then it is not as it is now. It is a perspective, say, more inclusive or higher than the one that we're in. And it's not made out of the same parameters if it is another dimension. The sort of higher or otherness of it go together. Other dimension means different in probably every possible way. So, but what the scientific, the material scientific approach has in common with Kabbalah is that they both say everything happens here, but what we experience is different in different dimensions. So Kabbalah is a way of changing, expanding our perception of reality. And it tells us what the basis of reality is and what gets expanded, what changes so that our perception changes. And it doesn't change through theoretical analysis or through work in the mind or through mathematical calculations. It happens through changing the one who wishes to perceive reality differently. Well, then what? That one is the scientist that's undergoing the change. What's changing? What inside of a person in their present state needs to change? How does it change? What's the result of the change? And what is it in that reality is made of that even allows for or supports this kind of change? Is there a direction in it? So yes, Kabbalah says yes, it tells us what the basis of it is, and it's not what we expect it to be. And I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, because maybe these things will come out through the questions. It tells us the purpose of living in a multi-dimensional, expanding perception of reality. It tells us what the end game is as well. Why, in a sense, it speaks to the heart, not to the mind, as to why this would be like, it would be built this way. And it focuses on the thing that is absolutely closest to us, and that is what you might call the heart. The emotional response to relationship. And it deals not at all really with matter, but it starts with the highest dimension, and gives us a map from that highest dimension, gives us a sort of a way of looking at where we are, and it shows us how to expand our happiness, our experience of good, our overall perception and positive connection to absolutely everything. That's what it is. It sounds unbelievable, but that's only because it's hidden from us right now. But most likely the reason you're here is because you want to find out, well, what is that and how do you do that? So let's go. Let's start answering questions.
Okay, yeah. First question is completely aligned with your introduction, Tony. Crystal James, joining us on YouTube, is asking, are there hidden quantum dimensions inside of us that lead to the spiritual realm?
Hi, Crystal. No, they're outside of us. There's nothing spiritual inside of us at all. Spirituality, well, first of all, you got to define spirituality. So I don't really know what the basis of your question is, but if we understand that spirituality is this greater connectedness, this greater identification with others, basically, and the relationship to others and to all of nature and so on, then that's outside. That's outside of us. And what we're trying to do is to identify more and more with more and more of what we think is outside of us. So the question of inside and outside eventually disappears because we are annulled and melded with the reality that we see. And that's why we know it, because we're like it. The more we can feel the needs and so on of friends around us, of the society around us, or the nature around us, then we are like that, and we feel it, and we know it. So these dimensions, I wouldn't call them, yeah, okay, let's use quantum, because quantum has a basis that is not like the physical reality that we have, that we believe in and cling on to at the moment. It has an underpinning that you would say everything is already completely connected all the time and instantaneously. So how can such a thing be if things are separated? So that's the basis is quantum. It's really based on what the ancients called faith, but we begin to understand now is that there is no basis for separation. Mary?
Crystal also wants to know, do we have a soul and a spirit? If so, what is the difference?
Our soul is something that we're building in this world. We're gathering to us, to our heart, the concern and care for what we see outside of us. The more we do that, that's called soul, because soul is an intention, and by our nature, we don't have that. We're born without that, basically, except for a basic point in the heart that is like that, but it's unconscious. It's what moves us towards wanting to develop that and wanting a world based on that and not on the separation that we see. Spirit is a level of that. It's a high level of that kind of inter-inclusion with and care, and acting in a similar way as the idea or intention that creates creation and sustains it. It's something that we reach along the line of our development. It's not something that we have now.
Okay, one more question from Crystal for now. She's very inquisitive
Mhm.
regarding the spiritual realm. Does listening to the resonation and frequencies given off by bells and chimes and certain musical devices help us to attain the spiritual realm?
No, it doesn't. No. I'll just keep it simple. Okay.
Okay, next question is from Mark. Do we not choose what we get? Is it all predetermined? We just have to receive what the Creator gives. So are we learning how to receive? That's what Kabbalah means and teaches.
We desire things. Sometimes we don't even know what it is that we desire. We ask for things even without words, and then there's a response from nature, from the Creator, which is the actual answer to the quality of the thing that we desire. Because if we desire something that is unlike what we need to take our next step in development, then we'll receive something that instead of that will guide us a little bit closer to that, if we understand it. It's all what we receive is always correct, but the concealment in our perception of reality tells us, no, that's not right. That's not what I wanted. That's not good, and it's not aiming me towards something good. So you're right. The acceptance of what we receive is extremely important. To understand where it came from is extremely important, that it came from the highest in order to develop us, and whether we can feel it or not, it's meant for our ultimate good, because we don't know what's good for us. Certainly not from our created nature, we don't. From the starting point of our development, we don't know anything except where we've been, and we don't understand that very well either. So there is a choice involved for us. It's not like we're just robots. We have the choice to reject how we're being developed, or to acknowledge that it is development, where it came from, that it came from the greatest good and is guiding us towards that, whether we can feel it or not. That is a choice. And once that happens, then we are open to that, to the change and the direction that it wants to take us. Okay?
Okay, next we have Abraham Alabachu is wanting to know, what happens to me after the physical death? Do I come back again, clothed in a different body?
Possibly. It depends on how far we develop, as to whether it's required for us to return to this level in order to learn. The whole goal of being here is to develop ourselves to the point where we don't need to. But even if we do need to, that's what we need. We can't do it another way other than our grasp of the path, our willingness, and the correction of what we desire. And we never lose. At any level that we attain, we maintain it, even in a new incarnation, whether it's a physical incarnation or whether it's one that isn't physical. It's all the same process. It's all held in love and care. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay, Rosalina Gutman has a question for clarification. Does Kabbalah have a definition for reincarnation?
I just gave it to you, really, in a sense. But we need to understand that we're not physical. We don't actually have bodies. That the physical separation and the clothing of flesh and clothes and all that we see is part of the concealment and our connection and need for being separated from the light, from the inclusive reality. Our nature is such that and there was an original shattering. We are one soul, one being, one creature. There was an original shattering of all that makes us perceive that we are separated. And it depends on our desire as to our desire being, we call it a vessel. That's what Kabbalah calls a body. It's not the physical body, but it's the nature of the desire that we have and the intention that we have for the use of that desire. For whom? For what purpose and for whom? That is the thing that is undergoing reincarnation, not the body. So whether we see it as a body or we see it, begin to be able to perceive it as a desire and an intention in that desire, that is the thing that ultimately is changing, is incarnating over and over again in more and more and more refined, higher, more inclusive form. That's the real definition in terms of Kabbalah. It's an internal spiritual thing that's occurring. The relationship to spirituality is the thing that's happening. Our capability to hold more and more of that light or that being included in the reality of us as a single creature in relation to the upper force. We, according to the concealment that we feel, that is, how much we're dominated by our ego, or how much we're willing to try to work over it, not to destroy it, but to work over it, then we grow. Then the nature of the body or the vessel changes. That's reincarnation. And its relationship from the spiritual to the physical, it's from its root to branch. That's very complex. I don't know it at all in detail, and I can't explain that to you, but the basic definition is that it's your heart that's reincarnating.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Johnny Joseph is asking, can two people in a relationship who annul to each other on the corporeal level attain spirituality?
Not without proper guidance. It's not just the annulment. There's a context in which this has to happen. You certainly can achieve a kind of bestowal and deep connection, which is of the same model as what we need to achieve in terms of all other people and the world and all levels of nature. If we restrict it only to a single relationship without the guidance of a teacher, without the correct targets that we find in the books and the explanations, and without the context of the whole of humanity, then no, it's not really spirituality. It's a fractal of it, and it contains a small amount of light, but it isn't your complete development.
I see many viewers are sharing where you're tuning in from today. We'd love to know that. So please drop the location in the chat and I'll share that in a little while. Viewing on Facebook, Jules Dahan is asking, what is the function of our emotions?
Oh, you think they're emotions. Then that's not what they are. Our emotions are a balance between two intentional forces. What real forces are intentions. These are the highest forces in reality. And where we stand between the desire to receive, the intention to receive for myself, and the intention to receive in order to bestow to others, to make my existence or my relationship for the purpose of good for the other, those are the forces that produce emotion. Emotion is always in relation to otherness, and the quality of that, the direction that is aimed at. So our emotions are really they can become, not as they are now, but when it's compared to absolute bestowal, and we get some kind of sense of what that might be, or even want to know that, then our emotions become like a meter. It becomes a sensor. How much am I like this complete and perfect force of giving? And we feel the difference, and that produces in us what we call emotion. It's the difference between us and the Creator. And the only way that we really feel all that is in relation to other people, because the Creator is completely abstract to us. We can make it be anything that we want, so it's like nothing. The place where we work this out and get a grip on why we see the kind of reality that we see is all in our relationship with other people. It's the only way to come to the perception of the higher force. Did I answer that question? What was the question? Maybe there was something else in it that I didn't get,
Sure. Yeah. What is the function of our emotions?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, they're a meter. They're a lightometer. They're a light meter, like for your camera.
Okay, next question. In terms of the reality we see around us, Victor wants to know, currently we experience many crises. Also, there is a strong drive to reach the sustainable development goals to restore nature's balance. How can we see this drive in light of nature's program?
How can we see what? What was the last part of it?
How can we see this drive in light of nature's program? Meaning the strong
I
drive to
see.
reach the sustainable development goals.
Right, and the crises. Well, that's the only thing that ever really happens. Whether we see it as a crisis or not is a question of resolution. Like, how high is your resolution of perception? It used to be that few people saw it that way, didn't feel there was a crisis, didn't feel that there was a requirement for balance because they felt perfectly fine, we thought we were in balance, or we were willing to accept an imbalance as long as it was to our advantage. So the higher the resolution, the more clear it is that everything's in imbalance. This is happening to us from nature. This is why we're seeing it this way, because we are collectively developed to a point where our resolution is like in the billions of pixels area in terms of the emotional, the care that we feel, or let's put it this way, we feel it as danger. We don't feel it as care, but we need to turn it into care. This is aid from nature so that we begin to feel this and realize that it's up to us to supply a conscious balance to nature. But the other thing that's happening is that it's also showing us that we're not going to supply that perfect balance and homeostasis with the imperatives of nature through technology, or through our minds, or through social theory, or carbon taxes, or any of the approaches that we're taking from the area of perception of reality, which constitutes the problem. It has to come from a place of much greater care and connection. It has to be something voluntary in every one of us, because what's failing is that we can't live in the integral quality of nature, in the quantum aspect of nature that's being revealed to us. That no, you don't get to hide this from yourself by going, no, I can't hear, no more. We know that we're living in it, and the only way that we can live in it in a sustainable way is to change everybody, to change their nature to want to live in a completely integrated and responsible way with each other, which means we have to work to change our heart. No matter what we do, no matter what steps we take, even if it's all done, all the same step from the UN or from wherever you want, and you mandate it everywhere, it can't work. The mandate has to come from a collective recognition that the responsibility to the whole is completely apparent. Everyone is dependent on me, on you, and what you do and what you want, and that we need to ask to be able to be changed by nature, to work that way in our attitudes with each other, because we can't do that. Our nature's against that, but nature wants us to do it. So we have to ask the highest forces, the upper force. We have to show that that's what we want, because that desire is growing in us. That's what these crises are for, to build a correct desire for the correct thing. Now we need to understand how that's done. That's what Kabbalah is for. It's for this era, this epoch, and it's to show us how to live in that completely inter-inclusive reality that we're entering.
Hey, Tony, from Facebook, no name indicated. Are there certain things I should read to understand Kabbalah better?
Well, there's plenty that you can read, but the way to I would not call it understand it, but the way to grasp it or attain it is to, it requires oral teaching. You know, you need to, one needs guidance, not a lot, but based on reading, and we should put a link to the bookstore. There's all kinds of things that you can read there. Kabbalah for the student. If you're going to start someplace that's just got just about some of everything that you need in order to, it might be all that you need in terms of reading. But, and it's called Kabbalah for the beginner, or Kabbalah for the student. You got it there? What does it say? What's its title, Mayor?
Kabbalah for the student.
Okay. Yeah, lematchil, as I always think of it as the beginner. So, but you have to be shown, it's simple, but our perception hides this stuff from us. You have to be shown by a guide, by an instructor, what these things actually are in you. You need tips. You need a little bit of direction. You know, you'll read something, then you need to go, boom, you need to be, no, it's a little bit in that direction. No, it includes this. No, you don't use this part. And all of that, and you need to see it working in a society. Society is a big word. I don't mean, it's like you have to see other people working on it. That will give you, that's the compass. That's the compass that helps you turn on that light meter, that light sensor. Reading's not enough. But reading is important, because terminology, it's surprising how words really have a lot to do with the structure of the reality that we see. It's very easy to mislead people and societies by lying and changing the meanings of words or using them with no meaning. So the definitions in Kabbalah, which you find in the books and are clarified in a way that you can grasp them, through instruction, help build the framework of a reality that you will eventually attain through your own effort. Long answer. Okay.
Okay, thank you everyone for sharing where you're viewing from today. I think we've blanketed almost the entire planet and then some. From Sydney, Australia, Nashville, Tennessee, Wales in the UK, Tucson, Arizona, Bulgaria, the Netherlands, Quebec, Ethiopia, Romania, Portland, Oregon, Southern California, London, England, Brazil, Minneapolis, Minnesota, New York, LA, Jupiter, Florida. It's Jupiter, Florida, not Jupiter and Florida. That would be pretty cool. Ohio, DC, Oklahoma, York, Pennsylvania, Oak Harbor, Washington, Hyderabad, India, Puerto Rico, Alberta, Canada, Chicago, Ireland, Bangalore, India, and Salt Lake City. Thank you. You can continue posting. I'll share more locations a little later on. Thank you again.
I noticed that, Mary. You snuck in that Puerto Rico again.
I did. See if you were paying attention to me, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Crystal, thank you for sending us another question. Crystal James is asking, are we born into families with certain siblings and parents to learn something that we are lacking?
That's true of every context that we find ourselves in. You don't lack it. We don't lack it. It's a matter of creating a direction, an impetus, desires that lead us. But it teaches. Well, the purpose of everything is to do this for us, to show us what love is, or to show us when we lack it, or we. What's really beautiful about focusing on the family is that we understand very well that in the family, as a beginning point for our development, it's only about love, care, mutuality, concern, and the success or failure, in a sense, of the way that the heart feels. And the way that we see reality is shaped completely by that, by nothing else, really. It is the fundamental structure. It's not just a bunch of, say, positive or negative traumatic things that build the psyche. The psyche, the whole purpose of what we are, the desire, is completely shaped and is only about those things. We have to have all of that, positive and negative. Because ultimately what we're going to learn is how to fulfill that in a good and perfect way for other people. The world's not about anything else. So, yeah, it's doing, it's like being planted in a garden by nature and growing there and then learning what a garden is and then sprouting your own seed. Mary?
Okay, thank you, Tony. Rosalina also has another question. How does Kabbalah refer to the vibrational universe?
Well, it looks at it this way. Quality. Kabbalah deals with quality. And you can call quality vibration. How? It's about the way that we advance and grow is through a law called equivalence of form. So if you want to be able to see something or hear something, like see a higher dimension, and live in that dimension, to be able to perceive and attain it, inwardly we have to be like it. In other words, the frequency on which we operate has to be the same frequency as the place that we want to enter, to go, to perceive. That means that the quality of our heart and intention has to be like that of the realm that we want to enter. And it's clear, obviously, that that's so, and that it's a principle in nature. When you look at all of our communication devices, they're all built on that principle. Radio is the simplest one, but it's true of the internet and every place. Numbers are frequencies. So if you don't have the right numbers, you can't enter, connect, get into a place to communicate. With a radio, all radio stations transmit on certain frequencies. In order to be able to hear the radio station, you have to be able to tune, and there's something like a crystal or something like that creates frequencies inside of a radio apparatus, and you tune it until you come up to exactly that frequency on which the broadcast is occurring. And then all of the impulses are understood inside of the receiver as sort of analog impulses that get amplified and move the speaker. Now you hear it, but you didn't hear it until you had some kind of external device that puts you on the same wavelength. So our sight, our emotional perceptions, our connections to others, and our ability to have positive relations with them has got to do with how similar are we inwardly to what they want and need. And it's a law that works everywhere. In spirituality, there is no time or space. So you can't move, and the only way that you can move there is to have this similar frequency, meaning similar intention. That's what allows us to enter, say, a higher world or realm or greater perception, is that what we want and the reason that we want it and who we want it for is like the intentional force on that level. That's how Kabbalah sees vibration.
Tony, Johnny Joseph is with us on YouTube and wants to know, how do I join a group? I have done most of the online courses, but it's all theory and I want to make it real.
Well, I don't know if you're talking about KabU, but if you keep moving in KabU and you go into through all of the courses, you should have been exposed, first of all, to what working with other people is, like working in a circle or in what we call attain. And then further on, there is the graduate environment in which people are organized in such a way, provided a group like that to work with, so that you can experience that interplay of everybody wanting the same goal and trying to work at connecting to that single desire for the benefit of that group. So if you keep going, it's just down the road. You would receive it. Maybe you left at a certain point because you thought all the curricula were over, and you may have missed that. I don't know. You can't answer me. Are you? You mean you were in KabU? Did you take a course? Did you join KabU? Because KabU is, or did you just look at video on demand type things? Because there is a complete, it's like a university for attainment. And if you go to KabU, and we've got classes, a whole new thing starting up. I don't know what the date is. I'm sorry. I don't have that in front of me. But it happens regularly. And if you go to the site, let's put the link in the chat, then you can see when the next curriculum starts. And it's, just move through it and you'll get to a place where it's provided for you.
It's October 16th, Tony.
Thanks.
Okay, next question comes from Yaftahi, asking, what is the concept of happiness according to Kabbalah, and can it be attained here in this world?
Happiness is the happiness of others, according to Kabbalah. The identification, the care, connection, and experiencing a world that is good and is guided by good, regardless of how it appears to the ego. That is intended to be attained here. There's no, there's no heaven, in the sense of you achieve this after your death. No. A Kabbalist learns to live in two worlds, and both of them are perfect, even the one that doesn't look perfect. The perception is above this world on the level of causes, and the interaction is both with others and with the light is both above and in this world as it appears to us now. And all of that good completion and attainment is intended to happen here. While we're alive, physically alive, which is neither life nor death. But it's intended for us to be completely fulfilled, because the intention behind creation in the first place, the reason it was created, was for us to become completely fulfilled. Completely means you don't cut one thing off from another. It's fulfillment and happiness in this world.
Okay, next question is from Whitney D with us on YouTube. What's the point of evil? And if this one being / spirit split itself, why continue to have evil?
We did not split ourselves. The upper force split us, and the only thing that was created in creation was evil. Because it is, now don't get confused with all the ooga booga stuff that you scare yourself with when you hear the word evil. The force of egoism that makes us do things at the expense of others and for ourselves, and everybody does that, no matter what they say, is intended to eventually be felt by us as something that we choose not to want. It is a developmental force that we don't understand. We think, the ego thinks that there is a hard line between good and evil, and that we want to live only in what the ego calls good. But that's impossible. Good happens only over hatred. It happens only over our tendency towards self-fulfillment, self-love, self-interest. It has to be a choice. It can't simply be a single static state. There would be no development. What we think of as evil, or let's say the egoistic force, is our best friend. It's the force of development. It makes us begin to want the right thing. It makes us choose on our own through enough experience and proper guidance to connect and do good regardless. That's how it happens on the human level. It's there to make us want good and to find a correct perception of what good is. Not the childish perception. I'm not calling you a child, but this desire to want only good, that is a desire of a child. It's the desire of the ego. The upper force wants to develop us to be like it, to be able to use the forces of nature, and there is only one force and two sides of that force by which it develops us. Those two forces, we in the ego call good and evil. But the force that moves us along and makes us choose and change what we desire is a guardian angel, basically. It protects us from unconsciousness and destruction. It evolves us.
Thank you, Tony. Saeed Sakalan Abbas is wondering, why do Jews hate the truth of Jesus' mother?
There's nothing in that question that really has anything to do with Kabbalah, nor do I think it's even any aspect of it is accurate. So I'm not going to address it.
Okay, next question from Layla Stackleather. Is Kabbalah only for Jews? Who is Kabbalah for?
No, Kabbalah predates any religion. Kabbalah is a relationship with the Creator that is meant for all of humanity. It's the law of nature, basically, in the form that the human heart can understand it, which is love your friend as yourself, identify completely and care for community, your friend, and the world, all of existence. It's the basis of reality. When we lost connection to each other, fundamentally, we lost the connection to the upper force, and this happened a couple of thousand years ago, to 2,500 years ago, something like that, and is marked by the let me put it this way. Israel, the word Israel is a term that means direct to the Creator. It's not about a people. It's not a religion. It's not a country. It's the nature of a desire and its intention. The desire and the intention is straight for the Creator. Yasher means straight. That's the first part of the word Israel is like Yasher is and El, which is means the Creator, God. So it is a desire of the human heart to be directly connected to the upper force, to the upper one, through good, positive, ethical relationship with mankind, with all of humanity. So that's what Kabbalah is, the science of how we can undergo the type of change in our intention and desire that brings us into a conscious relationship like that with the Creator and with all of humanity. Religion is when we lost connection to all of that. We had all kinds of things like memory devices, but we sort of made them material, we made them practices, physical practices, because we couldn't understand anything about intention. We couldn't reach intentions. We couldn't correct our intentions. But now we're at a place in general where all of humanity can correct their intentions. So it was never truly Jewish. It might have been certain aspects of it were maintained in a kind of a memory devices in Judaism, in Christianity, and Islam, but they were dormant. They were asleep, you know. Now that it's awakened, we don't need necessarily those channels. Those customs are good. They're good, and they serve a good purpose, but it's not necessary for humanity as a whole right now to approach the law of nature, or Kabbalah, through those means. You don't need to have that. If you have that, great, all the better. You know, you've got you have it in some means in your culture and in your society. That maybe that's a little more complete, but it's in no way a barrier, and it was always intended for everyone because it's nature.
Okay, Tony, a question just came in regarding reincarnation that you were talking about earlier. Quick Math, viewing on YouTube, is asking, can a man reincarnate in a woman's body?
Kabbalists say no. And they say what you are is what you are. What male and female exists in as an intention and is a description in Kabbalah uses the genders to describe the two forces by which we develop. Without giving it's not a value judgment. Reception is called female and bestowal is called male. These exist as intentions inside of everyone. So if you live your life with trying to reach bestowal in every interaction that you can, including all the sort of functions of your own heart, then you're male, whether you're female or you're male. If you're constantly thinking about your own stuff, your own identity, your own whatever, then that's called female in terms of intention. What happens with the body, male or female, is irrelevant and actually not even real, because this is not the reality. So it's difficult in a way to talk about reincarnation because that's why I began by speaking about perception of reality. What we're seeing is the complete whole reality, but do we perceive it? No. We see ourselves divided in every possible way and cling on to those identities as though they were meaningful. They're not. What happens in our relation to others, in our heart, is what matters. That's where reality is. The rest of it is just like playing with dolls. Mary?
Okay, George Gwynn sent this question in from Facebook. This week's readings talk about faith above reason and to surrender common sense and logic. It also says the Creator may give you years of suffering when you try to perceive him. Shouldn't I be afraid, especially if I devote years to this and fail?
You're going to suffer anyway, but you'll suffer for other reasons, and you won't understand what your suffering is coming from or what to do about it, because all that's being described in those things that were studied this week is how to get a conscious grip onto what nature is already doing with us, and to get a deep and strong grip on it, and then start to be able to work with it. It's just that we're limited in terms of words as to how do you talk about the subtlety of the heart when our grasp is so blunt. We can only talk in general terms about suffering and time, and you have to have some way of addressing these sorts of things. Well, really what's going on is a beautiful, sparkling refinement of your ability, your sense of beauty, and your ability to know what you wish to be able to achieve, attain, and give. The words, the bluntness of the words, and of course they're old words. They're kind of arcane, and they're coming out of a culture that speaks a kind of a different language. And Kabbalah, in the first place, is a language of roots and branches that tries to speak about spiritual qualities through a language that we have created in order to describe physical or egoistic properties. So there's a translation that needs to happen. I think we need to understand that it's talking about stuff you're going through anyway, but it's giving us a way of dealing with it, living in it, and rising above it.
Okay, Layla Stackleather wants to know, a lot of religions are patriarchal. What is Kabbalah's view?
The highest force is the force of bestowal. In the language of Kabbalah, bestowal is called male. The caring male is called father. The system of spirituality is divided between father and mother. Both of those functions are working in order to develop us. Nature has a structure in which bestowal is at its essence. It is a bottomless fountain with no end that only cares for our well-being and development. And since the terminology for that is bestowal is called male or father, you could say it's patriarchal, but it has nothing. It arranges. It's up to us to arrange an ethical society based on the laws of nature, not to oppress people. And there's the implication of oppression and patriarchy. But you can look at the way in which nature works with everything, and it works in exactly the same way. Do we hate it or do we accept it? Do we feel it as oppression or do we see the beauty of nature's shape, form, and intention? It's not patriarchal. It is the structure of reality, and anybody can be father or father and mother to those that they love and are responsible for, including their society.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Johnny Joseph, thank you for sending another question. Can we only reach spirituality through people with the same goal?
Well, we can learn if their goal is spirituality, and if spirituality is correctly defined, and you're working with them, yes, because then you know that the people that you're dealing with are never doing anything for any other purpose than to eventually reach the ability to give totally and to care. If you're in a, if you're in a society like that, then it becomes clear to you what's spiritual and what's not. You're not confused because you know the whole vector of what's happening with everybody is towards your good, and everything in you is towards their good. So if you start perceiving, it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody, is weak and fails. So what? Even if they fail, what did they fail at? Even if they insulted you, what did they fail at? They failed at the goal that they wished they would rather be attaining. And everybody returns to that effort. And you know that if you see something wrong, that it's not reality that's wrong, it's my perception that's wrong. This is nature always develops its young in those kinds of conditions. It always puts it in a situation that will teach it how to understand what nature wants from it. And that's how you teach the human heart.
Okay, going back to the topic of the soul, Tony, Chester Drawers wants to know, do all humans have a soul? How do I know that I have a soul?
Every human has the latent aspect of a soul, which Kabbalists call point in the heart. It is a piece of the highest light that's in us dormant. It's a desire. It's what leads people to want to grow spiritually, and it wants to eventually transform the entire heart that is just filled with all kinds of other desires, mostly for the self, and fill the heart instead of that. So everybody has that, but it has to be developed. A person needs to put in efforts, and other people need to care for that seed. But it's an undeveloped soul. It has to be evolved. You have to take that and turn that into the whole of your heart. So that's why Kabbalah says you don't really have a soul when you begin. You have to build that, because the soul doesn't exist in you. It exists between you and others. The soul is the quality of connection between. That's what the Creator is. The soul is exactly like the Creator. How like the Creator is the level of soul or spirituality that you attain. How unlike it, that's the barrier to the next level, and so on. Yes, everyone has a soul. No, it is not developed, and it doesn't just happen. We have to work on it. That's what we're here for. Mary?
Okay, Saeed, thank you for sending us another question as well. Saeed Sakalan Abbas is asking, what is life and death?
Yeah. Life is the perception and attainment of the good of others as the most important and the most beautiful thing that there is, as a reality in your heart, in the same way that you desire what you desire now. To be connected with that is life, and life has no boundary. It doesn't have an end. There's no death in life. Death, the line that creates a false separation between life and life, that we call death, is the constant returning to desire for our own benefit. Constantly defining the heart in those terms creates a line that we cannot pass, or we think we cannot pass, because we're not trying to pass it. So death is a kind of an illusion, but it has to be unlearned. Yeah. And I think with that one, we're going to end. And if there are announcements, let's do it now. And Mary, don't forget to tell our friends about the private, the exclusive meeting that we have now, and that their ability to get into that.
Okay, sure will, Tony. Also sharing their locations. Thank you, friends from France, South Africa, and North Carolina. Great to have everyone with us today. Incredible questions. Thank you very much. Announcements are, if you want to join KabU, if you're not already a member, then we invite you to join. You can see the links in the chats, and you'll gain access to several Kabbalah courses from beginners to advanced. Join the world's biggest online Kabbalah community. You'll have the ability to ask instructors questions in the student forums and have access to a KabU exclusive weekly webinar. Also, you get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course with Tony that starts on October 16th, 2022. So mark your calendars, October 16th. And also, we do have a private session in another Zoom. If you join KabU now, you will receive a link to another hour following this one, where you can ask Tony questions live and as many follow-up questions if you'd like to. Also, if you want to make a donation, your donation is much appreciated. It's put to good use in producing our courses, broadcasting live events such as this one, and maintaining all of our services. So please check the links in the chats. Again, wonderful to be with you, Tony. Thank you all for joining. It's great to have everyone with us today.
Wonderful questions. I think we connected with each other, and I found it inspiring, the kinds of questions that you're asking. So I thank you, and I'll see you in a bit.